Welcome back. So, Sony has just released the WF-1000 XM4s. Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? For both our sakes, I'm gonna call them the M4s. Now, if you know me, then you know that I use a lot of Apple products. Hence, the questions I had going into this were more centered around Apple users. Would it be good for us? How does it compare to the AirPods, etc.? Let's talk about that. Starting with fit and finish. The lid on the case feels a little cheap. That said, the case itself is really small and feels relatively robust. Unlike my AirPods, I don't feel like I'm holding a polished egg and therefore need to buy a case. It feels quite rugged and durable, and I don't worry about it being in my pockets. I also do love that it's matte black. God bless you, Sony. Regarding the ear tips, I just wanted to point out that these use a sort of memory foam instead of a soft plastic or rubber. I really like the way the memory foamy stuff feels, but I don't think I'll be able to wear them for quite as long as my AirPods. I also just wanted to note that they do feel more secure in my ears. Sometimes I do yoga, and when I'm in downward dog, my AirPods Pro will occasionally fall out of my ears or start to slip, and I don't really feel that with these, which is nice. Next, let's talk about pairing. This should not be a whole section, but it is, so bear with me here. I wasn't really sure how to pair these with my iPhone. Once you know the trick, it's not too bad, but essentially you need to take them out of the case and hold a finger to each headphone for 5 seconds at the same time. Now, to be honest, this really just feels like an unnecessary extra step, especially given that almost every other pair in the industry basically just shows up when you open the case. Next, let's talk about settings and experimental features. One thing that sets the M4s apart are things like adaptive noise cancelling and volume control, as well as speak to chat. The first two, I would argue, are pretty highly experimental. Basically, your headphones use your phone's GPS to know where you are, and then based on the learned locations, it will decide whether or not you might or might not need noise cancelling. The problem with this feature is that mine changed a lot even as I was walking around, and every time it changes, you get a little boom noise, and honestly, that's irritating when you're listening to music, especially if it is happening a lot. Now, when I was biking, sometimes it would just decide to turn noise cancelling on or off, which, depending on where you are on the road, could be pretty dangerous. With speak to chat, the idea is that if the headphones hear your voice or someone else's, they'll turn on pass-through automatically. This is a great idea, but it's so laggy that you'd be better off just doing it yourself. On top of this, Sony has an entire app dedicated to the settings of this device, which in itself is a good idea. Some of these features, like equalizer control, are very welcome. The thing is that the app has 3 different pages for settings, and ultimately this makes the experience feel kind of messy and overcomplicated. Either the setting app needs to be organized in a simpler, more intuitive way, or they need to remove some of the extra fluff. Next, let's talk interface. Essentially, the interface for these is just a capacitive touch sensor on the side of the headphone, both sides. What really kills me about this, though, is that I have yet to find a good pair of wireless earbuds that have a good way to control volume. Some over-the-ear headphones do manage to do better with a swipeable surface, and if you recall, the Google Buds did the same thing, but frankly, a lot of these still have a lot of problems associated with volume control. To me, it seems kind of crazy that the things that are most entirely designed for listening to music don't have volume control, and you can only just play, pause, and skip. I think that we do need to see some growth in the design of these. As far as actual play, pause, and skip controls go, it's pretty standard stuff. Just tap once for play, pause, and double tap to skip forward, triple tap to skip backwards. It's fine. It just doesn't feel really great, honestly. I think that we can do better, but I'm not an engineer. I'm just a critic. Next, let's talk about sustainability. I love the sustainable packaging. Little tangent here. In the past, companies have done very similar things like this, compostable packaging, and it's great. And while I love that Sony did this, I won't really be impressed until they commit to doing this with a lot or all of their other products, because it is a step in the right direction, but it's not really enough. We're regularly told to stop using single-use plastics, and we absolutely should fight for that. But frankly, companies like Sony have much more power to reduce the use of single-use plastics in this area than we do. Okay, noise cancelling. Adaptive noise cancelling feels just insanely random. When it switches during a bike ride, it's so windy, like you can barely hear the music. I would argue that it's actually windier than if you weren't wearing headphones, because essentially the pass-through is more or less amplifying it. Something I do really like actually about these, which oddly I haven't encountered before, is that when you turn on noise cancelling, it just says noise cancelling.
Noise cancelling.
There's not just some magical noise that you need to memorize to make sure that you know if it's noise cancelling or not. You don't have to guess. It just says what it is. That's one of those extra settings in the settings app that I am actually quite thankful for. I do have to say that the noise cancelling on these is probably the best that I've experienced. Bose did a pretty good job, but if you watched my Bose review on the Buds, you'll know that they were terrible in a lot of other ways. The M4s are way better than the AirPods Pro. And I think as far as earbuds go, these are the best for noise cancelling in their class. Let's talk about sound quality. Honestly, these are probably the best sounding earbuds that I've ever worn. It's partly because the noise cancelling is really good, but the sound is also just very full and rich, and for the average user, these are great. Also, they get incredibly loud. At 3/4 volume, I begin to fear for my ear health, and frankly, I didn't turn them up all the way because, again, I was kind of afraid it might hurt. I'm glad they're designing these just in case I need to drown out the apocalypse. Next, let's talk about Assistant and Siri. It would be really nice if Apple and Sony played a little better together because this would make these a lot better for me. As regarding the Google summoning phrase, it doesn't work when these are paired to iPhone. What's more, Google Assistant can do basic music controls, but it can't change the artist or launch apps unless your phone is unlocked and you have Google Assistant open. On the note of launching apps, I actually tried for 30 minutes to enable this functionality, but if the setting does exist, it's buried very deep in Google Assistant settings. So yeah, if you find it, good luck with that and let me know. On Android, these do take a little time to set up, but it's actually a very flawless experience on an Android phone. On this note, when I am using Google's wake phrase with an Android phone at home, I also end up summoning my Google Home speakers as well, of course. And as we continue to live in a world with more and more smart objects, Apple and Google either need to let us assign unique wake phrases to our specific devices, or they're going to have to do a hell of a lot of engineering to make sure that our devices know who's talking to who. Lastly, the battery life. I found it to be quite satisfactory. Honestly, I just used it as I would have used any of my Apple headphones, and it performed remarkably well, even with the excessively good noise canceling. Honestly, I think that they've really done a good job here. Now it's time for the summary. Honestly, I really like these headphones. It's things like this that make me want to switch to Android because the quality of the headphones, the quality of the noise canceling is so good. Having said that, the experience for iPhone users is so stripped back that honestly, I can recommend that you buy these. If you do have an Android phone though, these are the ones. Don't buy anything else for now. This is the best one you can get. At the end of the day, these headphones are fantastic, but not for iPhone users. I think Android wins on this one. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll be right back.